10 survivors tried to escape the desert alive, and actually built a plane by hand using scrap metal. To make sure the plane could take off smoothly, they used all their strength to pull the plane to a flat open space, but no one could be sure whether the plane they built would really take off. And there was an even bigger problem. They only had 5 igniter sticks left. If they used them all, and the engine didn't start, they would be stuck in the desert forever. The captain slowly walked toward the plane. As the others watched him with hopeful eyes, Nick entered the cockpit of the plane. He installed one of the last remaining igniter sticks. The teammate in front of the engine began to spin the propeller. Once the engine reached the ignition point, Nick attempted the first ignition. Their hopeful hearts sank immediately, but Nick tried the switch again. The propeller in front of the engine started to turn slowly. Seeing this, Nick slowly increased the throttle. Under his control, the engine began to spin rapidly, but before they could celebrate for more than a few seconds, the turning engine slowly came to a stop again. Nick quickly tried the ignition switch a third time, but the engine behaved just like before. 3 consecutive failures made the people in front of the plane feel all hope was lost. At that moment, Nick, under immense pressure, realized there might be impurities inside the cylinder, which was why the previous ignitions failed. He needed to use one igniter stick to burn out the impurities, but if he did that, they would only have one igniter stick left to start the engine. Encouraged by his teammates, Nick pressed the ignition switch for the 4th time. What they saw next terrified everyone. In order to escape the desert alive, they had to place all their hope in Nick. Under the gaze of their hopeful companions, he pulled the final igniter stick. Then he carefully began adjusting the throttle. Watching the engine slowly start to spin, everyone began to pray, hoping the engine would finally start. As the engine roared to life and spun rapidly, the people on the ground immediately burst into cheers.